Well, here we are. Joe Biden's been in office for a little over a week. How's he doing? Well, he signed a whole bunch of presidential, orders. He signed, I think, 17 executive orders so far, about 5 times as many as Trump signed. One of them has already been dumped in a federal court, which was his ban on deportations for 100 days, because the state of Texas had an agreement with the federal government. They'd be given at least 180 days notice prior to any changes. They didn't get the 180 days. The judge said an agreement's an agreement. Live with it, all right? And why Joe would want to stop these deportations at the height of a pandemic when we have so much going on and making people, getting people to come into this country this way at this time especially is crazy. I understand his emotions on legalization. I understand the DACA program and all that, but this has nothing to do with it. This has to do with keeping that border shut down, and he should have never canceled the building the rest of that wall. It was something he was totally in favor of not that long ago when he was a senator, and now he's totally against it. So go figure. He's schizophrenic. All right. But the other thing he did was this. It was the repealing of the Keystone XL pipeline, getting rid of the permits. And the logic behind what they're talking about just falls apart, especially if you read the agreement here. It says the analysis further concluded that approval of the proposed pipeline would undermine U.S. climate leadership by undercutting the credibility and influence of the United States in urging other countries to take ambitious climate action. Climate change has had a growing effect on the U.S. economy, with climate-related costs increasing over the last 4 years, blah, 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 blah. All right, and the reason they said the last 4 years is because those were the years that Trump was in office, and it's absolutely untrue. And if you want to know how untrue it is and how wrong-headed this idea is, think about it a little bit. Canada has roughly 840,000 barrels of oil to export. And the pipeline back in 2012 was looked at by the Obama administration. Obama was 100% behind it. He thought it was a great idea. The Department of Energy and the State Department all looked into it. They did multiple studies, and they found that it was safe, very effective, and by far the very best alternative there was to get this into the marketplace, because ending these permits is not going to stop this oil from getting out of the ground. If Americans actually think that, they're stupider than they seem. And I don't think they do. What's going to happen is that the Canadians are not going to throw away potentially 4% of their gross domestic product because the United States doesn't like their oil. Keep in mind that Canada has very high environmental standards and very high requirements, and their own country has extremely good air. Their air quality and our air quality are we're going to get to it in a minute, are in the very top in the entire world. We're so far ahead of the rest of the world, it's crazy. But what's going to happen is that they're going to continue pumping this oil out of the ground, and they're going to put it on trucks and trains and ship it to ports on their coasts. It's going to get loaded onto tankers, and all the way creating a big carbon footprint, which pipelines have no carbon footprint at all. It's just a pipe, and they're going to ship it to a country, maybe China, maybe India, and these other countries where they have very low requirements, very low standards for refining oil products. Petroleum refineries in most of the world are pretty horrifyingly filthy. The ones in the United States, the group of them that run through the middle of the United States and down to the Gulf Coast, are all under very stringent EPA regulations. They are very clean, very well run, and this is by far the most superior alternative there is. But for some reason, the Biden administration thinks it'll undermine us somehow, and it doesn't make any sense. And if you take a look over here at this chart, this is put up by the World Bank. It's the standard that environmentalists use around the world, but rarely publish this chart in the news, and you're going to see why it's rarely published in just a second. And it's called the PM 2.5 air pollution chart, and it's a universal measurement system used around the world. You can do it by city. In this case, it's by country. You can see here we have China, Russia, the United States, and all that. And it'll tell you what their PM 2.5 rating is. And if you come down here, I've set this graph up to go in the best air down to the worst, the best being in the low single digits and the worst being at 100. Okay, and at the top, at the very top of this chart, are countries in 6s and 7s. All right, these are the very best. Finland, not surprisingly, has very good air. Small economy, they don't do much there. New Zealand, the same thing. Brunei, same thing. Sweden, Canada is a 6, Iceland is a 6, Estonia is a 7, Norway is a 7, the United States is a 7. The United States and Norway are basically the same, all right? And none of those countries have big GDPs to speak of. Canada's is pretty big, 1.7 trillion. The United States is 22 trillion, so it's 12, 13 times larger than Canada's economy. But to find another major economy to go down this list is hard. You have to go down quite a ways into some pretty big pollution numbers to find big economies. China is a 50, has a 53 on the PM 2.5. India is in the 90s. I think it's 91. We'll get to those in a minute. But the reason all these countries want us back in the Paris Climate Accord is that they're expecting us to pay for things. Because if you look at we're leading by having the best scores around. And then when you get down and you start entering into European countries, Spain is pretty clean, but we're still 30% better off than they are. Denmark is 30% worse off than we are. Switzerland ranks well behind us. Luxembourg, the United Kingdom is a 10. And then you get down a little further, France is a 12, so their air pollution quality is about twice as bad as ours is. Solomon Islands, Austria is a 12. Keep going, and you get down here to the 17s and 18s. It includes countries like Nicaragua, Croatia, Albania, where they have growing pollution problems. Cuba, their air quality is 3 times worse than ours, 4 times worse than ours. Honduras and so forth. And then you get way down here, now you're into Thailand, and these countries where they have huge pollution problems. Korea's a 32, which means their air is, roughly, 4.5 times worse than ours. Jordan and so forth. And where's China? China is, let's see here, China is a 51 or 2, I believe. There it is, 53. There it is. That's China, 53. And India is in the 90s. India is there it is, 91. All right. The worst country in the world for air pollution is Nepal. And the global average, which is an interesting number, is 46. The average in North America is 7. All right. So every continent in the world trails the United States. Every single continent in the world trails the United States by a wide margin. The United States is head and shoulders already in multiples doing a better job with climate change than the rest of the world. So why do they want us in the Paris Climate Accord? Well, it's simple. They want us to help foot the bill, and that's all there is to it, and that's what Donald Trump knew. Europe has plenty of money. These countries, China has plenty of money. China doesn't even have goals for their pollution reduction. They just have aspirational numbers in mind, and the same thing for India. Nobody at the Paris Climate Accords had to put up any hard numbers that they had to stick to. They were given the option, especially if they have developing nation status, which China has in India, that they can do. Basically, we'll do the best we can. All right, but for those countries to be looking to us to bail them out is absurd. They can pay their own bills. All right, the oil industry is an essential U.S. industry, and this is something that people don't seem to understand. That without oil, the price of everything goes up. If the price of oil goes up, the price of cars go up. The price of heating your house goes up. The price of going to work, which impacts the low-income worker more than anybody else. If you're making a good income and you're spending an extra $1,000 a year to get to work, that's okay. You can absorb it somehow. You don't like it, but you're going to do it. The cost of heating your house is going to go up by $400 or $500. You can do that. But when you add on $1,500 to $2,000 a year of additional costs of living to low-income workers, people making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, lower income scales, this impacts them. This affects quality of life. They've got kids. They've got to put clothes on them. All these things. All of these products that everybody buys, from laptops to cell phones to automobiles to everything, rely on the petrochemical industry, the chemical industry for products you use around your house, the food processing. All of these things are impacted heavily by the price of energy. The price of energy is one of the greatest causes of inflation there is, because it pushes up the price of everything that uses it, and there is nothing that doesn't use petroleum. And I understand the interest in developing clean alternative energies and all that stuff, and the market will decide that. But right now, we're nowhere near that point at all. And if I hear one more person say that, well, the Keystone XL cost 11,000 jobs and they're only temporary jobs, my head is going to explode. All construction jobs are temporary. All jobs in the trades of that kind are temporary. The Hoover Dam construction was temporary. I don't think anybody said, well, don't do it because it's just a temporary job. The big dig in Boston was a temporary job, though it lasted almost 2 decades because of the corruption and whatnot. But at any rate, the point is that construction jobs by their very nature are temporary, and construction workers, people in the trades that build the things that we need, our infrastructure, they do one job, and while they're doing it, their employer pays them and they orchestrate and do the engineering and get that job completed. And another part of that, those companies are always out looking for a new job. So right now the guys doing the Keystone pipeline may go from there to doing another pipeline, or maybe doing something at a refinery, or doing something at a chemical plant, or something else where they can incorporate their skills. But they're always working. And in a growing economy where we're trying to build infrastructure, this is important. So for the life of me, I can't understand what Joe Biden is thinking if he looked at the numbers. And my feeling is he didn't look at the numbers. My feeling is all he did was listening to the little voices screaming at him behind him about the environment. And let's face it, the guy doesn't have much of a spinal cord, and I don't think he's all that terribly bright. I think he's schmoozy and that kind of thing, but I don't think Joe Biden is a very bright guy, and I don't think he understands economics worth a darn because he's never had a job. The guy has never worked outside of government. It's all he's ever done. And his history in government has been mediocre at best, but everybody likes him, and that's the way it is. So I don't know what they're thinking, and I think Joe Biden is going to continue to make stupid mistakes. He's going to make stupid decisions, and he's going to be led around like somebody with a ring through his nose what he should do next. And it's pretty obvious to me that anybody who's heard him speak, he's not all there. His speech at the inauguration was far from inspirational. It was like he was a schoolboy being forced to read something that he didn't want to read, or he'd have to get detention. All right, I don't think he's fully behind any of it. I think he's just a lot of talk, and it's already evident that that their COVID operation is sort of falling apart. They're not prepared for it. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And it's going to get worse, and I'll talk about it as it comes up, of course. All right, but that's the way it is for now, and we'll see what happens. But for right now, you got 10,000 people out of work that were making $100,000 a year. Price of oil is going to go up. Pollution is going to go up. Canada is not going to stop drilling that oil out of the ground because they need the money, and other countries are going to benefit from it, and that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple. All right, have a great week. Bye.